Okay. I'm making notes on my little card.
Okay.
I love this. I love that we're going to have a lightning round. This is going to be so much fun. We got a lot of people coming in the waiting room. So I'm going to go ahead and just introduce the event. We are so happy you're here. It's another Wednesday. It's the Big Texas Read. We've been doing this for over 2.5 years since David Samuel Levinson came to Alexandra and I to say, hey, let's all get together. As you can see, David's fake mustache that Zoom has given him in his tile. He said, let's feature authors from all over this great state of Texas, and thus the Big Texas Read was born. So thank you for being here tonight. My name is Blake Kimsey. I'm the director of Writing Workshops Dallas up here. And every month we get to do this, and we like to thank our sponsors. Humanities Texas has given us a grant so that we can pay our featured authors, which is great. I guess Lone Star Literary always helps us spread the word on Twitter and on social media. So if you're not following Lone Star Literary, you certainly should.
Yeah,
The University of Texas San Antonio Library System also does a great job about helping us spread the word about the Big Texas Read. So thank you for being here tonight. I'm going to throw it over to Florinda, who's going to tell you a little bit about Gemini Inc. down in San Antonio, and then David, with his Zoom mustache, is going to introduce our special guests. Yes, thank you all.
Thank you, Blake, and thank you everybody for joining us tonight. So Gemini Inc., if you're not familiar, is San Antonio's Writing Arts Center, and our mission is to teach the craft of writing to people of all skill levels so they can bring their stories to life. And part of our mission is building cross-community connections. And that is why we are so happy to collaborate with Writing Workshops Dallas to bring this great event to you. I also wanted to do a quick plug. Xelena, who's our moderator tonight, she has a class coming up called Picture Books That Pop. You don't want to miss it. If you have not seen her children's books, they're amazing. That workshop is going to happen on August 27th. So just a quick plug for that. And David, go ahead and introduce our two phenomenal folks today.
Okay, I will, but one little station break. If you're interested, I'm teaching a class in September, on September 8th through something called The Resort. It's a 1-day, like 2.5-hour class basically. And it's, we kicked off the Big Texas Read with my own novel, Tell Me How the Sense Will, which I wrote in 3 months. And apparently that's like a really formidable class. It's a very popular sort of topic. So anyway, I'm team teaching it with a really good friend of mine who's incredible. She's hilarious. It's sort of, you get 2 Jews for 1, basically. She's in New York City too. I mean, she's amazing. She's really hilarious. And if you're interested, I can put the stuff in the chat. I mean, it's September 8th, and then my class is like 2 or 3 weeks later. But we basically teach you how to organize your novel, and then I will help you write it in 3 months. So come on, come on. Anyway, awesome. That was my little plug. Please take the class. It'll be really fun. Now, let me introduce the amazing writers we have for you tonight. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce the moderator first. Her name is Xelena González. She's a storyteller, dancer, and visiting author who centers self-love in her multidisciplinary workshops for all ages. Her picture books include the award-winning All Around Us, the recently released Where Wonder Grows, and the forthcoming title Remembering, Simon & Schuster 2023. Her writing for adults includes poetry, essay, screenwriting, and a body of visionary fiction entitled Loteria Remedios, I House 2024, or Hay House 2024. Xelena has enjoyed a 15-year friendship with Laurie Ann that began at Gemini Inc. We love Gemini Inc. Now, about Laurie Ann Guerrero, poet laureate of San Antonio, formerly, and of Texas, formerly. Laurie Ann Guerrero is the author of 4 collections, including A Tongue in the Mouth of the Dying and A Crown for, you're gonna have to pronounce this for me.
Gumecindo.
Gumecindo. Her most recent collection, I've Eaten the Rattlesnake, New and Selected Poems, which is absolutely fantastically amazing, was released in the spring of 2021. She is an associate professor and the writer in residence at Texas A&M University San Antonio, where she teaches writing and gender studies. I'd love to take one of your classes.
I'd love to have you
Welcome.
and your mustache.
Welcome,
Thank
and my
you.
mustache.
Thank you so
Welcome.
much. Thank
Sure.
you.
Take it away.
So should I just read a couple and then?
Yeah.
Okay, jump in. Okay, well, I'm gonna read the very first poem. I think it's the first one. Yeah, the very first poem in the book. Yeah, I'm just gonna jump in. It's a newer work. So this collection is new and selected poems, and it has poems from A Tongue in the Mouth of the Dying and A Crown for Gumecindo, and it has a section for new work and occasional poems that were written, that were commissioned by the city or different entities. But this poem, it's the first one in the book, but it is a new poem. Excuse me, sorry. It's called On Eating Rattlesnake. I remember it only once. I was small. Maybe it was the one my father shot off the front porch. Maybe it wasn't. The men stood around the fire. The women sat inside. I snaked around the men, hiding myself, slitherer. I have seen it many times before, the long stripping, one fist pulling skin, another pulling flesh. And how the kills were celebrated. Rattles and skins hung like tapestries, the innards left to wild things. When it was passed around hot from the fire, the women did not partake. I dug in, rough and curious. There was nothing more unashamed than a rattler, no apology in its tongue. It would never be cute. I had to eat it. I had to know this. Thank you. So this poem is taken from my first full collection, A Tongue in the Mouth of the Dying. It's called Sundays After Breakfast, A Lesson in Speech. There were no names for men like that. Gringos who stitched up their rules, their white garb, laced snug the issues of the day. Lord didn't make us to mix with them folk, they said. But God's got nothing to do with the black boys dumped still alive into a restless river. God's got nothing to do with having to tell their mamas. That bloody water ran through each dark vein across Texas, fed the Gulf, all its brown-skinned people. This Grandpa could name. Los cuerpos. Bodies swaying above the cotton like sheets on a line. No importaba que no eras negro, pero que no eras gringo. No, it didn't matter that you weren't black, Grandpa said, pushing himself from the table, but that you weren't white. He lived his life this way, silent, like every man after him, opening his mouth only to eat, holding his head above the cotton between white men and black boys. And this one is called, also from A Tongue in the Mouth of the Dying. This is called Put Attention. Put attention, Grandma would say, as if attention were a packet of salt to be sprinkled or a mound we could scoop out of a carton like ice cream. Put attention, put attention. Put it where? In her hands? In the percolator? On top of the television set that seeps fat red lips and Mexican mustaches? Next to the jade Buddha? Between La Virgen and Cousin Pablo's 6th grade class photo, marshmallowy teeth jumping out of his mouth? We never corrected her. Like the breast, Spanish lulled Grandma's tongue as we threw down shards of English, laughing for her to leap in and around. Put attention, put it where? Shall I put attention in my glass and drink it soft like Montepulciano de Abruzzo, like Scheinerbach, horchata? Put attention. Ponga atención, she tried to say in our language. Put attention somewhere large, back into her eyes, in the part of her brain that doesn't remember her own daughters or how to make rice, translate instructions. You can stop there. Thank you.
Yay. Thank you, Laurie. All right. Well, we are going to start some discussion, but that won't be the last of Laurie's poems that you're going to hear tonight or in the next half hour or so. We're going to have a discussion, and for the last 15 minutes we'll take some Q&A from the audience as well. So thank you for being here. It's great to see a lot of familiar names and faces. We saw as you all were checking in, and we've reduced that now, but we're really glad that you all are here. Laurie and I are good friends. We've been friends for a long time, and when Gemini Inc. asked me to moderate this discussion, it was an easy choice to say, like, well, let's just meet here, right? Like here in Laurie's office and library, because we have a lot of fun conversations here. And so we're just happy to invite everybody else in. So I thought we could have one of our regular fun, we're already live. We don't need, she doesn't know what I'm going to ask. I brought little cards, but our conversations always go in so many places, and they're always fun and full of like laughter and tears, because we both laugh easily and cry easily because it's the same well, no?
Yeah.
And so we might do a little bit of that, and that's okay. And then Laurie, if you at any point in the conversation feel like, oh, that relates to this poem, because everything I think we do relates to our work in some way,
for sure.
then just dive into it.
Awesome.
So that's what we're planning. And you'll get to know a little bit more about Laurie and her writing, and why she is our Texas Poet Laureate. So I wanted to ask you first about the title of this piece. So I have eaten the rattlesnake. Did I get that right?
Mm-hmm.
So as you know, I am a big, I don't know what the word is, like fan practitioner of animal medicine. Like I believe in when these animals appear to us, we're drawn to them, there's a medicine that they have for us, right? Like you're talking about a literal eating, but also just their strength and their symbolism and what makes them unique and what we can take from that in our lives. So I read something interesting about the rattlesnake, which is that what?
I believe you.
I did.
Go on, teach me.
I want to make sure I get it right.
Teach
So
me.
so as it outgrows its skin, right? So this is what, and I'm sure you know this, right? But, or maybe not, and it's okay, right? Like we learn every day. So as it outgrows its skin, like, I don't know if it's called molting. Some of you probably know shedding, right? So the remnants that remain, like those hardened shells, are what collect. They're like, they stay a part of it. And that's what creates the rattle. So it's like,
I did not know that.
No?
Oh, I love that.
now I want to read it.
I
As
love
the snake outgrows its skin, remnants remain of its former self, hardened cells, and that creates the rattle. Those are my words. That was me.
I think I knew that.
Yeah.
In my soul.
That was me putting it in a little more poetic way, like the scientific stuff, because I had heard of it, and then in preparing for this, I was like, well, let me look it up and make sure it's true. So. Okay, so tell me about that. You knew it in your soul. So what does that mean?
I mean, it's crazy because I mean, that poem is like, the story in that poem is real. Like that really happened. And like, and I mean, I won't go into the story of when the day my dad shot the rattlesnake off the front porch, but there was something about, that it was that the snake was celebrated in a way that, like, it was witching on, you know what I mean? Like it was like, and that the women wouldn't partake in it. And it was very much for me this, it kind of was like it's kind of summed up my childhood. And I'm the only girl in my, my dad's side of the family, and my grandfather on my dad's side, he's the one who, mostly raised me because we lived next door to each other. And he's the one for whom the Gumecindo book is named for. But that sense of needing to sort of like shed the skin that I was born into, to be acknowledged, listened to, heard without apology, like a snake, and so I think I'm very sensuous in that I need to taste everything, I need to touch it and eat it, I need to consume it in some way, but when I do, it becomes a part of me. And so, like, looking back at that time when I was little when this happened, and eating the rattlesnake, but I feel like at that age there was something so I don't know, inherent in me, or something very knowing, like ancestral, in that it took me consuming that for me to understand like where I, like the lineage of women specifically that I come from, right? Even though in the poem it's like the women, but it was, that, well, you have to read the whole book to get all of that, you know what I mean? Actually the next book, but yeah, so that's
there's definitely a continuation there, right? But that's interesting because it's like, it's those old cells that we can't always just shake off, right? But it also, it at least for the rattlesnake, it's what kind of warns people, right? It's a protection also. It's the things that we've learned.
And it is a bit of a warning, right? I mean, there is that sense of, I mean, and I don't have it, my brother has it, the rattle from the snake that my dad shot. It was given to my brother, it wasn't given to me. That's the whole thing. But there's something about that warning, right? I mean, and that's sort of, I don't like, not necessarily a good thing, but like a very conditioning of like, I'm not like the way I'm supposed to be, right? According to our culture or our wherever, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, I'm different and fuck you, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but that's what makes it unique too, right? Like, it's a part of it. It's what makes it strong and to be feared. And it's a very regional thing too. So this is us. This is our conversation. There's no wading in shallow waters here. We're going deep.
This is us on the daily. Yeah.
Is there a poem that comes to mind that you want to share, or? And if not, it's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's just keep going.
All right. So that is the title. I Have Eaten the Rattlesnake. So it's named after that poem. Can you tell us why you decided to name this compendium after that poem?
Yeah, when I was putting this collection together, it's maybe a little bit TMI, but I was putting this collection together and I was going through a breakup, and I needed to write these poems to remember who I am. And so this collection ends with and I'll read it, The Plight of Lovers. But it was really a reminder to myself who I am.
Yeah.
So
okay.
Back the fuck up.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So in case you're just joining us, we're celebrating Laurie Ann's book. Laurie Ann Guerrero is the Texas Poet Laureate 2016 and 2017, right? And so as I understand it, it's a tradition, right? That TCU, right? Texas TCU.
They don't go by Texas Christian University. They're just TCU.
Oh, okay. So TCU University Press publishes a compendium of work or collection of work by all of our state's poet laureates. So again, thank you for joining us if you're here in Texas or out of state. So we're talking now, but did you want to add something?
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So if you joined us early, you heard a little bit of the story of how Laurie Ann and I met, and that was through Gemini Inc., who's one of the main hosts tonight. Gemini Inc. is a nonprofit literary arts center here in San Antonio, and Laurie Ann, who's from the South Side, and I'm from the West Side, and we met as adults at Gemini Inc. You were first in the mentorship program.
That's right.
Yeah, that's when we first. Yeah, that's when we first met, and you were still.
That was before I went to undergrad. When I was in the mentorship program.
Yeah, and you had just gotten into school, right? Because I remember you talking about it. So you went as a non-traditional student. Yeah, and went all the way, right? Just continued, and then came back to San Antonio with a master's of creative writing.
Poetry.
Okay, in poetry. And so then she started working with Gemini Inc. in some of the programs that work in the communities that serve underserved populations. And she said, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. Let's talk about it. Right. So we brainstormed ideas, and I'm like, I'm not a stingy teacher when it comes to that. So we sat at a restaurant, and our babies were really young,
in high chairs.
They were tiny. So it was like, I want to say around 15 years. So we're celebrating our quince of our quince. But now, 15 years is a long time, but it's also quite kind of short, like to go from like, hey, how do I approach the teaching of creative writing with this fresh degree, right? And now you're the writer in residence and a professor on tenure track at Texas A&M University. Hey. And so tell me about that journey and like how do you go from one end to the other? Like, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. That's kind of, I don't know. I think that my life has just been I've been very lucky. My stars seem to align. I also work really hard. I surround myself with really amazing, strong women specifically. But I think, I knew very early on, we were talking about high school earlier with Livy, but I knew even in middle school, high school, that I wanted to be a writer, but I knew I never wanted to leave my community. And I think because of the experiences I had as a girl in the South Side, in a very, very traditional Latino home culture community, that what I saw, I think I knew that it was important for women, girls even like me, to speak up. And really the drive was, I had a lot to say, and I didn't know who was going to listen or how. But I knew that I wanted to be heard, and I wanted to be, I wanted to, this is very personal now, but she always did that to me. I wanted to be respected for my ways of thinking and communicating. And so, from very early on, I didn't want to be cute. You know what I mean? I wanted to be smart. That was really important to me. And so I did everything I had to do so that I would feel smart, right? So moving cross country to go to this school, or doing all the things that I needed to do so that I would feel empowered in myself, right? So yeah, I don't know. I think, just 2 days ago, last year I became an associate professor at A&M, and never thought I would be in that situation, in that position. But I was moving my office. I was moving offices, and I have this new office, and it has windows, and I hung up my degrees, which I never thought I would have. And I hung up my Smith College banner, which I never thought I would go to that school. And then I hung up my little picture of Sylvia Plath. And then I had a student a few years ago give me a bouquet of cotton, because he appreciated that I write about my family who picked cotton, and that I recognize that I come from a family of cotton pickers. All 4 of my grandparents picked cotton. And I put all my things up in the office, and I put my bouquet of cotton, and I wept. I don't know how I get to be in the space like this, right? Where it comes full circle, on the land in the South Side where I am from, where my family toiled. And now my work here is on the same land, and it's very different work, all I can think is that I hope that I honor my ancestors with the same work ethic that they had. We're just doing different work.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Sorry, that was long-winded.
No, that was great. So 3 things come to mind. One, that's amazing, and it's all the flowers, Laurie, you deserve. Totally. The flowers and the cotton bouquets. I want to acknowledge, I said hi to her earlier, but Janelle Esparza is one of the many friends who's in the audience tonight. And so she actually has some she has some amazing work.
She had an art exhibit when I was working at the Guadalupe. Is that the same
really?
Janelle?
I don't know.
I think so. Cotton.
But it's her,
right?
Her family. She's a descendant of people who work the fields too. So as a visual artist, she works with. Yes. So I don't know. I'm seeing some connections there that might happen. But I'm always shitting on my friends. If you're in the audience, you know that, because I love our artistic community. It's so just supportive and wonderful. And she also runs Presa House. But anyways, So the other idea is that, I'm hearing you and I feel it and I see it, that you're an amazing teacher, right? Because I've met your students and they love you, they adore you. Besides the working hard, you must also love it.
I do.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I do love it. I didn't know I would love it. But
I think you do. I've seen a lot of poetry, and I used to, that was part of my job at Gemini, to hire them over the years. And poets are interesting people, but I feel like there's some who are like, I know this secret language, and you don't, right? And then there's some who are like, I know this secret language, but I can't operate as a normal person, right? This isn't an exclusive list, but I'm just saying, right? And then there's people like you who are like, I obviously, right? Like, you know, this language, you work with it well, and you're very excited about like, who's coming with me? Like, who else wants to do it?
Yeah.
And it makes you a wonderful teacher. But
Aw,
let's,
I love you.
yeah, I love you too. Let's hear something else. It's inspiring you to read something.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking about my students now, and I was in 2019, A&M celebrated 10 years, and the President Mattson asked me to write a poem in honor of the 10-year anniversary of our university in the South Side. And I did, and I you know, I have these two students. I don't know if they're here or not, but I had these two students who joined my class, these two young women. One was like a young married, she's divorced now, like she's chingona, doing her own thing. Another one was like chingona in a whole different way, single mother of 3, like, you know what I mean? And so I could see myself in both of them. And anyways, so, you know, I wrote this poem thinking of them, having them in mind, but I wrote this poem for A&M for our 10-year anniversary. And there's an epigraph by Adrian Rich. And the poem is called Between the Soil and the Sun, but the epigraph is, you cannot afford to think of being here to receive an education. You will do much better to think of being here to claim one. The difference is that between acting and being acted upon, it can literally mean the difference between life and death. Between the soil and the sun. This is what I want to tell you. This is yours. The air and all who breathe it. We belong to each other, you see. You need not carry the stones in your heart any further. Here, there is no paper, no number, no fight you need to produce so that someone else will make space for you. It's the history in your hands that build brick by brick the rooms into which you walk. We will mark the days as they come. A job lost, another child gone. Lines to vote, to eat, to pay our debts. Conferring, as it were. Temperance noted in books our people could not read. Look here. This is what I want to say to you. You are not here to receive your education, but to build upon the lessons distilled through generations and to give your own inherent knowing in return, in the name of something far greater, in the spirit of yours and mine, whose bodies hold up the soles of our feet and whose knowing tames the quiver in our throats. Here is the lot cleared, and in its place, the documented evolution of our work on this land, our breath in contracts with the earth and with each other. You are the bloom that holds the root, making magic between the soil and the sun.
I hope y'all are whistling and snapping and like, yeah, at home, because that's amazing. That is so good. I'm connecting it to all these San Antonio artists, like Adriana has this beautiful mural, and I think now I can't remember, and hopefully somebody can put it in the chat if they know. Beautiful mural. I think it's at Palo Alto, which you also.
The one where this one, where it's a woman with her light.
No, it's lots
I
of
love that
students. It's all of her work is great, but it's like lots of students, and it's like it fits that so well. That's so beautiful. And it reminds me of the blessing that I got today. Can I read that real quick?
Yes.
So I was telling Laurie, I was at the pool on the west side. We're on the south side, by the way, of San Antonio. And I was on the west side swimming earlier today. And a woman passed by and she was expressing how much she loved our work. And she said these really nice things to me. And I felt the need to share it with Laurie because I believe that about the work that we're doing. Exactly what she's saying here, right? Like reclaiming space in a I mean, really, it's a colonized place that we live in. And so, and redefining what it means to be educated and to move about in this world that where our ancestors have worked so hard for us to just survive and be here, right? Just to survive. Anyways, this woman told me that she was talking about how much she enjoyed our work, and I felt the need to say this, to repeat it to Laurie Ann. Never doubt the path you are walking. The work you do is so much bigger than you, because your books are blessing generations before, because we never saw ourselves in books, and blessing generations to come. So your path will always be protected and your descendants will be blessed.
Yeah.
Isn't it great?
Yeah, I love.
So if you're hearing this, that's for you too. So speaking of your descendants, so we spoke of when we met 15 years ago, and Livy, who's upstairs now and just started her senior year, is that right? Senior year in high school. She was little. Girl. She was like barely looking over the table, and my baby was brand new, and they're big now. And so just as your friend, you know, I've seen your family change over the years. I've seen them grow. I've seen the parenthood dynamic shift. I've seen you were the primary caretaker of your grandfather for several years, and did a whole kind of sonnets in his honor when he passed, or maybe even you had started before he passed.
Yeah, I did. It was a different book before he passed. When he passed, it was, yeah.
So, I mean, just that, like, I see so much of your work affected by and informed by the way that you have grown yourself, but within your changing family dynamics. And so I just wondered, like how that's connected to your writing, and if there's poems that come to mind about that, or whatever you want to share, really.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, a lot has changed in the last 15 years, right? Like so much. I think that, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know about you. I mean, maybe because I'm a poet. I don't know. Like, I'm primarily a poet, I should say, because I know you write poetry too. That I'm always moved to write about what's going on, and it's not, you know, and I tell my students this all the time. I get into it with my students about this. When I ask them, why are you writing poetry? And their answer is always, so I hope someday someone will learn from what I have gone through. And I'm like, no, that's not, no, that's not why we write poems. I mean, maybe it is for some people. It isn't for me. And I think that if I ever wrote with an audience in mind, thinking of that, it would screw up my shit big time. Like, it just, I wouldn't. I mean, it's like what social media did to me. Like, I was like performing for someone else, and I can't do that. So, for me, writing all of my journaling, my nonfiction, my essays, and my poetry, it's all, for me, the process of writing is the thing that helps me center myself. It helps me to sort of distill my ideas and my thoughts so that I know what I think and where I stand, and I can back it up. But I have to write through it. Sometimes it comes out in a poem, sometimes it comes out in an essay, but that for me, you know. And so when my grandfather passed, it was 9 years in July that he's been gone.
Has it been that long?
Yeah, I know. Jeez. So 9 years. But at the time that he passed, you know, it just flipped my whole world upside down. I was taking care of him. I was, you know, I did all the things, power of attorney. Like I took care of him. And then all of a sudden he was gone, and everything that I knew to be true about who I was just was flipped on its head. Like, he was my history. He was my everything. And then suddenly it was gone, and I didn't know, how am I supposed to raise these 3 kids? Like, I have no tether. I have no anchor. I have nothing to steady myself. You know, I got divorced shortly thereafter. Like, everything just changed. And so for me, writing through that was my, it wasn't like, like there was this one review done. This is kind of in an aside. There was this one review done, and I remember the
What'd they
headline.
say, Laurie?
The headline was some shit like something like writing poetry is cathartic for, and I'm like, no, man.
It was about your work?
About the book, about the
Mm.
Gumastan, my Gumastan. I'm like, it was not about being cathartic. It was about processing,
Mm.
Anyway, we could go on and on. But anyway, so I wrote this book, but it was also like, as I was writing through the grief of, or not even, it wasn't even grief. I didn't know, I was in shock. I was writing through shock is what it was. I was writing through my shock of him being gone. But also like trying to like hold on to what he taught me in it, like we're working people.
Mm.
We work. And I remember being like, what would grandpa do right now? Like, if I was like, if I could ask him, what do I do with myself? I don't know what to do. He would say, you work.
Mm.
That's what we do. We work.
Mm.
We don't have time to be sad. We have to work. And so I put myself in that space of like, I got to work. I have to work. I have to work. I ain't got time to be sad. But as a poet, my work was poetry.
Mm-hmm.
And so I chose the most difficult thing that would totally force me to work. A heroic crown.
Yeah, that was
which
ambitious.
wasn't stupid. I mean, it was like thinking back, I'm like, no, it wasn't stupid, but it was like, it was hell. It was hell though, doing through it.
Yeah.
But it worked. I mean, I had to put aside my emotions to do the work of writing an iambic pentameter. Like I tried to do everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it was good because I had to like put my emotions on the shelf to get to work.
Mm-hmm.
That's what my grandpa would do. He'd go to work.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I did. Anyways, let me read a poem. I'm gonna read a sonnet.
A family poem.
Yeah.
A poem for your grandpa. I love it.
Grandpa.
And I'm seeing, as you're describing that, like this rattlesnake like shimmying out of its old skin, or like stretching and like fighting, but it built that rattle, right? Like the metaphor endures.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna read three of the sonnets from the Heroic Crown of Sonnets, which is a total of 15, but I'm only gonna read 3. This one's called Stone Fruit. Good, I would ask. Good enough, you'd say, of the wine we made from plums. Didn't we for years tend the mother tree? Didn't we for years prune, pluck, hold in our hands the purpled bodies bursting that begged, me next, have me? Weren't we so nourished in the nerve? Someone is buying your tree. You are reduced to pit. I put seed in dirt, wait for you to come back to me in a jar by the window. You are not growing. Aren't you a plum? Little red, little kidney, little mouth singing, calling, I'm here, I'm here. I thought the dirt would give you something to take hold of. I've buried everything I've ever loved. Casketing. I've buried everything I've ever loved in the bone of reason. Now, even in dreams, you are dead. Sometimes I wheel your metal-colored coffin to the grocery store, once to a paperie, twice to Fiesta Bakery in Pleasanton. You are heavy. Once I was in high school in a play and parked you stage left. Always I shake you. Wake up, damn you. Sometimes the casket is open and I kick you. And when in my small shoes I make contact, your ribs crumble like the bark of an old mesquite. Wake up, wake up. We can't run the numbers. Argue. Make your mother's bread if you are always going to be dead. Untouchable. If you are always going to be dead, who then will melt away the breasts from my chest? Need more my eyes than the unraveling of my hips. In your house, I was all bedrock and teeth, cutthroat, stopped clock, just as much man as woman, or rain. You were blind and I loved you for it. In your house, my shoulders grew to fit the work. Patience blossomed upon my head, a crown. You were my mirror, my name, ready plum of my right hand, my ancient and rivered neck, my compass, my wing, my open gate, my warrior, my sleepless legion, as if I had been born male, my kingdom come. And one day in hot July, my kingdom gone. May gumesinda.
I love that. I just lost my grandma, so I'm sure I'm not the only person listening today who is thinking of their grandparents and saying goodbye to that generation. So if you're just tuning in, Laurie's reading from her collection, her Texas Poet Laureate collection. And so that's from the Crown of Sonnets. How many sonnets are in the Crown?
15.
15.
Yeah.
So check out the book. That's Aslan Libre.
Yeah.
Right? Aslan Libre
Southside.
Press. Are they all in
Local
here?
press. The entire
whole-
all the crown is in the
Okay.
is in this book.
So the whole Crown is in here. We just heard 3 of the sonnets from that Crown. That was beautiful, and I love the way you read. And in case you didn't notice or you're not familiar with, I'm not as familiar as people who took more English classes, because I started in journalism. They didn't make us take that many English classes. But with the Crown, the last line of the poem, if you didn't notice, starts the next.
Yeah.
Is the first line of the next poem, right?
Right. Yeah. And so on. So the last line of the first sonnet begins the second. The last line of the second begins the third. And then the very final poem, the 15th poem, is comprised of the first line of every previous poem.
So it better make sense.
Yeah. It's hard. It's work.
No, it is.
That's why I was like, oh,
It's so
I needed my
hard.
tool belt and my
It's
hammer.
yeah.
Yeah. That's go to work. Yeah.
You did it. Well, I have to apologize because my little timer went off, and I set a timer so that we could reserve the last 15 minutes for questions. I do have other questions, so in case people don't have questions, we'll continue.
I
But
want to know your question.
let's check out the chat.
Okay.
Well, if you guys have questions, put them in the chat. And if not, yeah, keep going with it. This has been such a wonderful, exciting, touching, powerful conversation. So keep going if we don't get any in the chat right now.
All right, cool. Well, these are beautiful comments. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
So please go ahead and add some questions if you have some for Laurie. But I'll continue. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
All right, so
Oh, I wanted to read the last one.
go for it. Do it.
Because it sandwiches the whole
Yeah.
rattlesnake question
Yeah.
that you asked me. So just real quick, it's a very
Absolutely. Yeah, go for
short
it.
one. But it's called The Plight of Lovers.
Ooh, I love it.
The Plight of Lovers. You came to my body in my wildest grief, drunk in it. I welcomed you. There were catastrophes I needed to explore, and you contained them all. When you lap the well of my blood, milky and flowing near the river and sugarcane fields, you drink too, my mother, and hers, the lovers each they had. This is the dowry. This is the lot. The only child I will give you is myself. Be worthy. I have eaten the rattlesnake.
I love it.
Anyway,
Well, it actually ties into what I was going to share, because I like when they said, okay, can you have a conversation with your friend Laurie? I was like, yes, of course. And I wrote down just very basic things, right? Like family, teaching, and so body. It was like a huge thing, because to me, I love the way you read poetry. I love your passion for poetry, but you write about the body. Like I always think visceral when I think about your work, and we've talked a lot about like just investigating the body as a mystery, healing that, right? And so I do love that about your work. And I wanted you to share a poem, and you did. So let's see. Carmen has a question, and it's
Carmen.
Laurie Ann. I remember when you came to DC after a crown for Gumercindo. Did I add a Gumercindo?
Everybody has an R. There's no R in it. Yeah.
Okay. After the book was published. Now that it's been 9 years, do you find that grief continues to inform your work? Do you encourage your students to write through their grief? Such powerful poems.
Oh, thank you for that question. Wow. I think grief changes. Like, it's been 9 years for me, and I mean, God. Well, Carmen, you were at that reading, and do you remember I cried through the whole thing. So grief changes. I'm not in a place anymore where I cry at the thought of my grandfather. I think of him and I smile now. I'm grateful to have had him for 35 years. But I think even if I'm not conscious of it, I think it does inform my work. I think it will always, because I know what it means to have lost people. I mean, not just, my paternal grandfather, but both my maternal grandparents have also passed. And I think if I hadn't experienced the grief with my paternal grandfather, my grandfather I was closest to, I would not have been as capable to handle having lost my other grandparents. And not just that, but watching my mother lose her parents. And so having had that experience, I feel like I was able to help my mom through that in some weird way. But also like knowing that they're on the other side. I say that, but I feel like I should do this because they're the ones pushing me forward, my grandparents, and I feel them all the time. So it's a different kind of place that I'm at. I'm not crying all the time. In fact, I'm probably happiest I've ever been in my life now. Yeah.
So.
But thank you for that question, Carmen.
But it's funny because I had written on here and I was like, maybe I won't ask this or bring it up, but because it came up with Godman's question, like we talked about that one time, and actually I'm gonna publicly apologize because I hurt your feelings one time. We've been friends a long time.
When?
We were talking about crying at the readings.
Yes.
No, but
I remember.
In my defense, I was not. I mean, like you thought I was making fun of you, but anybody who knows me knows I'm a big crier too. Like I'm a big
that's
crier.
Why I was so hurt. I was
no, because it was like, no, you're gonna cry. You're gonna cry. It's who we are. And I remember a mentor telling me, like in acting, when I used to do stage acting, he was like, look, don't actually cry on stage because blah blah blah. It takes people out of it, whatever. And I was kind of like, okay, but then also like, what? No. And then I just finished this apprenticeship program where like, we're getting older and I was the mentor, and she cried during the storytelling thing. And then she said, she asked for feedback, and I had lots of feedback, and I was like, should I mention that? And I realized there was this part of me that was like, pass on this, what was passed on to you. But then it's like, but if you don't feel it's wrong, like, why would you pass it on? Like, I don't know. I like to cry. I think it feels good. And I love when you've cried in your reading. No, I really do.
Well, like you
don't fake it. It comes when it comes.
Here's the thing. Here's what I finally had to come to a point where, because you weren't the only one. Well, there was only one other woman who said that to me. She shall remain nameless. But
well, that's what we were talking about when we laughed about
I know.
it. Yeah.
But here's the thing. I got to the point where I don't give a damn. I don't give a damn if it bothers you. I don't give a damn if it bothers people in the audience. And but what I realize now, like, because I don't cry I haven't cried in a long time at a reading, but I was grieving shit. You know what I mean? But what I realize now too is the crying. Like in retrospect, I think back to those times and those conversations that I had with you and this other woman, and being like, fuck you both, right? I love you, but fuck you. but also now looking back, I was actively engaging and acknowledging this relationship I had. And when I cried, it was not my intention, but I lost it, right? But everybody in the audience was bearing witness to that kind of love. And so I make no apologies.
Yeah, absolutely.
I make no apologies.
No, and that's why I think like it's other people, you cry when other people can't. It's like the blues, right? Or there was this, like the guitar does it for you or whatever it is, right? Like there was this Kierkegaard quote, and I wish I could quote it well. Do you remember? I think I've shared it with you before.
Yeah. I have questions.
What?
Is it that one? Oh,
no, it says that the poet's lip, and it's because you have such beautiful lips. The poet's lips are so oddly formed that when they sing their sorrows, I'm probably getting this all wrong.
I remember
When
that.
they speak sorrows, it comes out like music. And so everybody's saying like, tell us another or sing us another, as if to say, may more sorrows befall you, and like, oh man, like I thought about that with like,
I remember. having that
yeah, with like
conversation.
Amy Winehouse, like with blues singers, but also like with poets too, because like we've lived through so much. And then like when you have the courage to share that, like to alchemize it and help yourself heal. And then like to the point of your students, right? Maybe eventually others if you choose to
Right.
share it. But like, I don't know. I'm still a fan of crying. Okay, anyways,
I love
we're
you.
gonna pull it. Me too. Okay, look. So how do we
Okay.
manage overwhelming emotions while writing? Also curious to hear how you manage what to keep private and what to share. And this is from Princesa
Okay.
Santa Maria.
How do you manage overwhelming emotions while writing? You don't. You don't. I mean, you can't. If you filter yourself when you're writing, you're screwing yourself already. Like, so don't. You cannot. If there's any place in the world where you can be unfiltered and unapologetic, it's on the page. Before you share it with anybody, before anything. That is and I won't speak for you. For me, that is my sacred space.
Yeah.
It's my happy place. It's my everything. Because I make no apologies there. I'm not filtered. I mean, you can't work through your shit if you're filtering yourself. You just can't. You're screwing yourself. And let me see, how you manage to keep private. Okay. Now, what you keep private and what you share, that is a very personal decision. I remember the first poem I ever published. I was 16 years old. My mom's not on this right now because she's gambling right now. Kickapoo. But she's not here. But I remember the first poem I published. I was 16. Well, brought to you, but I was 16 years old and I published a poem about my parents' divorce. And when it came out, my mother lost her shit. And she was like, Laurie Ann Guerrero. And I was like, mommy, I'm published. Like, mommy, I got like, look at me, I'm a writer. And she was like, how dare you put my life out there like that? And I felt bad. I felt really bad. I mean, at the same time, I was like super proud of myself. I was 16. I had a poem published. I was super excited. Many years, I carried that guilt for many years. And I filtered myself. And then many years later, I think it was Anne Lamott who said, or maybe it was Cheryl Strayed, I don't remember, some badass woman writer who said, if they didn't want to be written about, they should have acted nicer. I'm butchering the quote. They should have acted better. And then I remember when I was teaching at Palo Alto College in the South Side, I had a working writers series and I brought local writers to come read at Palo Alto. And one of the writers was John Philip Santos, and I had him come. And he did his talk or whatever. But the one thing that he said that I remember was, and somebody asked him a very similar question. He said, you have to remember that, yes, you're writing about their life. You know, you may be writing about somebody's life, but it was your life too. And you have every right to write about it. And so this was years ago, but that clicked with me. And I thought, you know what? It's my life too. So depending on what you're willing to share about your own life, I mean, that's how you decide. And I think like if the universe has put you in a space where you are so fortunate to write and to share your work and to share yourself, like, who the hell are you to hold anything back? Like, I mean, that sounds weird, but like I feel like I'm an open book. I don't, I make mistakes. I make big mistakes, and I've done a lot of bad things, wrong things that I shouldn't have done. I ain't trying to share all that with anybody, but if I'm distilling through my writing and I'm learning then I think, I don't know. Shit, that's a hard question. I don't know.
No, I think you
I'm gonna get back
answered
to
it
me.
well. Is there a poem that comes to mind that you think like,
Oh my God, yes.
yeah? Okay. One of those brave, like you're catching me in the skin shedding moment.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna read this one. And I was not gonna put this poem in here. And I asked my 21-year-old daughter, and this poem is about her grandmother. And I asked her, should I put it in here? And she said, Mom, you have to. And with her permission, I put this in the book. But it's one of those. Come on, read it. Come on, read it.
Yeah, read it.
So this one's for Vic, my baby girl, who said, yes, Mama, you can put that one in your
I
book.
love that. I love all your kids.
It's called Catalyst for a Daughter-in-Law. There were parts I never wanted to speak of. The child widening me from the inside made of me a stage. My breast, 2 mounds of clay, and you spoke on his behalf and for every mother, once and future, my own and yours. I took the washcloths to my nipples each bath in the weeks before he came, toughening them up as you said I should, that they would not be too soft, too weak for the ravenous mouth of a boy whose face I'd never seen. I tried to love the natural thing, leading a would-be man to my breast. I do not blame you, mother of the one I loved, all of us children, and God himself fucking you at the pulpit. So yeah, that's one.
That's a great poem. So if you're not familiar with Laurie Ann's work, pick this up. This is TCU Press, right? And I'm hoping maybe somebody from Gemini Inc. can answer this for me. I think this is available. Where is it available?
It's available
TCU Press everywhere.
TCU Press, you can get on Amazon.
Amazon,
Yeah.
but if we are divesting from Amazon, as I am, local indie bookstore, and it always helps when you go and tell your local indie bookstore who you want to buy books from.
Yeah.
If you're signing off, we love you. Thank you for coming and hearing these final poems. I'm going to ask a couple more things while we're here. If if you want to hang out, we have some lightning round questions, but before, just because we were joking about it, but before we do that, I do want to know if there's still people hanging out and listening and are curious about your work and maybe haven't heard of your work. What are you writing next? Because I see a lot of this literally weaving into this next piece of work that involves embroidery. Are you ready to talk about that?
I mean, it's a lot to talk about, but yes, I'm working on my manuscript, my current manuscript. It's called Red Work. I've been working on it since 2017. It's almost finished. I just got back from France where I went and did some research.
Oh, that's right.
So I did research. I was very fortunate to do research in China, in Mexico, and then in France this summer.
Beautiful.
So the book is coming together. It's a book about inheritance, about the power of women. I don't have all my embroidery is packed away because I just got back from France and I took it with me. But it's about the.
You took all of it with you?
Mm-hmm.
I was in a carry-on. In a carry-on.
Hell yeah, the carry-on. I'm late, girl. But yeah, so it's a book of about the empowerment of what we inherit from the women in our families. And so I was in such a horrible place in 2017 and I started embroidering, not expecting to do anything with it. Just it's the thing that I learned how to do when I was a little girl. And my body was taking over, because my brain was so not okay. My body was taking over and I just felt the need to work with my hands. And so I just pulled out embroidery. My mother embroidered, all my grandmothers embroidered. When I was married, his mother's grandmother, everybody I know, that's our thing, like we embroider. And then I started to understand what happens when women embroider and the stories around that, and also like how subversive it is, and all the ways in which women, I came to learn, around the world have used embroidery in very subversive ways. And so the book, it's called Red Work, which is a type of embroidery, and all the embroidered pieces that I did are in red. And so it's visual poems done in embroidery, and it's traditional poems, but it's also lyric essay. It's a mixture of everything, but it's I think it's my best work I've ever done.
I think so too. I think so too. I mean, you've held the writing pretty close, but I've seen the embroidery, and we've talked about it for a while, and the embroidery is gorgeous, and I know you're really excited to share. So I hope you will. Laurie is not on social media, so how can they follow you to know what you're up to, what readings you're up to? Your website?
Probably my website. Yeah, my website and my calendar has where I'm going to be, what I'm doing, and stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay, so what is your website?
It's laurieanguerrero.com.
LaurieAnnGuerrero.com,
Very easy.
and Gemini Inc. is really great supporters of what you do and what I do. And so
Yes.
ask your independent bookstores to carry her work. I'll make sure there's no more questions. Thank you, Florinda, for posting where to get Laurie Ann's book. And lots of thank yous, some people signing out. So thank you all so much. If you want to, we're going to just maybe hang out with the organizers here. So if you're off, you're off. Peace, good night. But we're going to do a quick lightning round because we joked about doing a lightning round, and I didn't prepare for this, but I wrote it right before we started. So because they were making fun of my cards. So I didn't get through all my questions, but here's the nonsense. Doesn't have to do anything with poetry. What's your favorite place to eat in San Antonio?
Oh, Rosie's Cafe on South Flores.
All right. What's your favorite curse word?
Fuck.
Okay. All right. Wait, were you caught off guard, or that's your
No,
answer? That's your
always,
answer.
yeah.
All right. We got an F-bomb on the big Texas read. What's your favorite color?
Couple. It always used to be yellow when I was a little girl, but now it's red.
Oh, red. Of course.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Okay. So we both have teenagers. You have like early 20s kids, like
Yeah.
they're getting big.
Mhm.
So we're subjected to their music, which isn't always great.
Oh my God.
But what is your favorite song of the
kids'
of the
music?
kids' music?
Okay.
Yeah.
My son's, it's the Killers, I'm the Man. It came out and he was like, Mom, this is your song.
Yeah.
It's called I'm the Man.
I'm the man. Okay, so
Yeah.
Laurie is, if you don't know this, Laurie's a wonderful singer. So I'm going to close out by asking you to sing a little bit of that song.
I can't sing that song.
Yes, you
I'm the
can.
man. I mean, I can't.
We'll change it to
no,
woman.
no,
Do it.
no, I'm the man.
Do it.
But I
Do
don't know
it.
the words to it all.
Oh, you
I'm
don't?
The man come round. No, you can take me down. I got gas in the tank. I got money in the bank. All right, that's all I'm gonna say.
So we're
It's a
gonna
good
play
one.
that. I haven't heard it. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank y'all for this awesome conversation. Thank you for being here tonight. This was we've got our first F-bomb, I think, on the Big Texas Read. We got our first
God.
partial karaoke lightning round. We got you guys in the same room. This was awesome. So thank you both so much.
So
Yeah.
fun.
All right. I'm glad y'all liked it.
Hey,
Yeah.
have you heard of Sophie Callie?
No.
Check out her work.
Who that?
Sophie.
She is her name is Sophie Callie. She's, I think, Irish. She does
Oh,
she's amazing.
heard her.
She's amazing. I think
Musician?
You're
I think
what-
it'd be a musician.
I think she came to
she
Green.
does
Really?
these multi